So this episode starts with a recap from the end of the previous episode where Izuku is going into the Vestige world, but he's seeing like memories of the first user of One For All and what had happened with All For One back in the day. And the end result of this causes like Izuku to wake up in the middle of the night and he like activates One For All and like destroys part of his bedroom. Then the next day we see Izuku going to talk to All Might about this, which is completely understandable because he kind of has to. And All Might is reminding Izuku that he had seen the Vestiges before, like when he had One For All, but that's it. Like it was similar to the experience that Izuku had in the sports festival, which we're gonna come back to later on. But All Might had never experienced anything like such as seeing memories of the first user or anything like that, but definitely not even able to talk to the first user the way that Izuku was. So then we're getting a pretty cool flashback with young All Might going through the city with Nana, the person who trained All Might and gave One For All to him. She was the 7th user of One For All. And her theory on what the Vestiges are the feelings of the previous users are being recorded into like One For All itself, or the Quirk factor, or the core of it, or part of the power. And essentially what Izuku is seeing could be like a part of their soul or something like that. And she even speculates that like even after they die, they could meet again in One For All. Then Izuku brings up what the first user said about singularity, and he assumes that he was talking about the Quirk singularity. And this is the theory that as quirks are passed down from parent to children, and they eventually mix and evolve as a result of this. And as this goes on, they become more powerful and more complex, and it will eventually get to the point of where they are no longer controllable because they're so unbelievably powerful. And this will essentially create like a doomsday scenario. So what's basically going on here is that One For All is basically speed running the Quirk singularity because of its dynamic. Like we established, quirks being passed on hereditarily will eventually cause that, but given One For All's ability to pass itself on to others, it's already happened pretty much 9 times at this point. Therefore, every time a new user receives One For All, it's a more powerful, advanced version of itself. And this is why Izuku is now able to straight up talk to the Vestiges, as where before All Might was only able to see them. So then we're coming back to UA and we see Izuku and All Might running into Aizawa, and we have a funny little exchange between them where Aizawa accuses them of having an affair. And then, wouldn't you know it, Shinso shows up, a character we haven't seen since the sports festival. And apparently he's been hanging out with Aizawa recently, and we're gonna find out why that is. Then we're cutting to Field Gamma, and now we're getting into the first big part of Season 5, and that's going to be the joint training battle between Class 1A and Class 1B. So now we're seeing Class 1A again, but now they have updated costumes due to the weather change, indicating that time has passed and it is no longer summer. Then Class 1B shows up and Monoma is more Monoma than ever. Like in this season, he becomes like almost full Flanderized in a way. But then we get a quick run through of the names of all of Class 1B. And it's understandable because, we don't really get individual spotlight on these characters, and that's pretty much one of the main purposes of this arc. So then Shinso shows up and we're finding out his purpose here, and it's because he wants to transfer over to the hero course. Shinso pretty much revealed in the sports festival that he wanted to be a hero, but because of his villain-esque quirk, things weren't necessarily going his way in the direction of him becoming a hero, so he kind of fell into the normal course or general studies in UA and wasn't really part of the hero course. But now things have changed and he's trying to transfer over to the hero course, but I guess they kind of want him to go through an audition in a way, and him being included in the joint training is exactly what that is. So then Shinso reintroduces himself to the 2 classes, and he's basically saying that like, hey, I'm here to excel and become like a hero student. I'm not here to make friends. You guys are all way ahead of me and I have so much catching up to do, so I kind of need to focus on myself. So another thing with Shinso here is that we're seeing that he has Aizawa's binding scarf with him, and he also has like this mask thing around his neck. The binding / capture scarf is totally understandable because we see how Aizawa uses it and they both kind of have similar quirks. But the mask thing is going to come into play at the end of the episode. So then Mineta is reminded reminding us what happened when Shinso went against Izuku in the sports festival. And that's when Izuku was under Shinso's brainwashing quirk. That was the first time that he saw the Vestiges. And it was also the Vestiges that kind of gave Izuku that little push to activate One For All and like snap him out of Shinso's quirk. And coincidentally, the beginning of this episode was all about Izuku interacting with the Vestiges, as well as the end of the previous episode. So Shinso has shown up again, kind of makes you wonder, why is that why he's here? But anyway, we're getting a breakdown of exactly what's going on with the joint training here. So as it sounds, it's just a training exercise, mainly combat for the two classes. We have 20 students in each class, so they're going to be broken down into 5 teams of 4. But since Shinso is there, it makes 41, which will make the teams uneven. So in order to fix that, Shinso is going to compete twice in the joint training, once on one of Class 1A's teams and once on one of Class 1B's team. And also the stipulation for this training is that you need to capture 4 members of the opposing team and like put them in a jail cell, and then you pretty much win. And the 5-person teams that will have Shinso on their side will still only need to capture 4 people. But anyway, we're coming to the matchups here, and it's going to be Kirishima, Kaminari, Koda, and Tsuyu versus Shiozaki, Shishida, Rin, and Tsubaraba. The next matchup will be Aoyama, Yaoyorozu, Hagakure, and Tokoyami taking on Komori, Kendo, Kurohiro, and Fukudashi. Then it's Ida, Shoji, Shoto, and Ojiro versus Tetsu, Kaibara, Mononuki, and Pony. Then we've got Bakugo, Jiro, Sero, and Sato taking on Bando, Iwase, Tokage, and Kamakiri. And then the last match will be Izuku, Uraraka, Ashido, and Mineta taking on Yanagi, Shota, Kodai, and Monoma. So then Shinso draws his lots, and we're seeing that he's going to be on Class 1A's first team, which is the Kirishima team. And then he's going to be on Class 1B's 5th team, which coincidentally is the team that Izuku is going against. So the first match starts, and we see Tsuyu immediately activating her camouflage ability. This looks pretty cool in the anime. I like how they did this. Then we see them strategizing and saying that they basically want to take out who they consider the strongest quirk to be first, and I guess they've decided that that's going to be Shiozaki. And Koda sends out like a few pigeons to observe the area, and they see that Shiozaki is like spreading her vines to get like a feel of the area. Then Shishida just comes out of nowhere, Zerg rushing them, and says that Shiozaki was kind of just like a decoy for them to worry about, and like blasting Tsuyu and Kirishima in the process. Then we're getting an explanation as to what Shishida's quirk is. It's called Beast, and it drastically increases his physical strength, hearing, smell, and sight, but it also causes him to like go on a frenzy when he's in his like beast mode. Then Tsubaraba activates his quirk, which is called Solid Air, and allows him to solidify the air to form a wall or platform through his breath, and he like captures Koda with this. Then suddenly we hear Tsubaraba like coaching on Shishida, but we don't see his mouth moving, and Shishida responds to him, then suddenly goes zombified, and it turns out that this was actually Shinso. Shinso's little mask thing allows him to augment his voice to sound like others. Therefore, he can trick the opposing team into responding to him, which will activate the conditions of his quirk, sending them under his mind control. And he calls this persona chords, and that's where the episode ends. So this sequence was awesome. I really like how the anime adapted these chapters. Let me know what you think about this episode in the comments. If you like the video, guys, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.